Hey guys, James from Push Press here with Good Stuff Daily. Um, Today is going to be a little bit different conversation and a little bit different format. We couldn't get ourselves to just talk about the normal stuff like everything is okay. So I wanted to bring you guys on a raw conversation we had, just a few of us here at the company, on how we're struggling with what we should be doing, both as a company and organization and as individuals. So, circling back to good stuff, I think it's hard to try to carry on conversations outwardly without recognizing what's actually going on. I mean, it's not a concern specifically for just gym owners and businesses. In some ways, it is, but it's a bigger issue than that, and everyone is talking about it and struggling with it somehow. But to come on and talk about what your favorite apps are, or I still see people like in the Facebook groups commenting like, how are you handling your airflow in your facility? I'm like,
Mm. A little tone deaf, you mean?
uh, I think so. Do we need to address this as a company outwardly on
Mm.
our social platforms?
Brian?
And
I've
like,
been thinking about
I
that.
don't want to make that decision by myself because I don't want to speak for everybody on something like this.
Yeah, I mean, it's hard. Like, I've been thinking about that all yesterday, actually, after seeing all the stuff. Um, I don't know.
For me,
Like,
it's a moral thing. It's not a. Again, I can't really see. I don't see politics in here as much as right or wrong.
I
like
would
my,
agree. Like someone made a Facebook post in the group, and they were asking if your brand was going to, the company was going to take a stance or make a post about this on social media. Exactly what you're asking right now, and the first response was, I always try to remain political, or excuse me, neutral in things like this because I don't want to marginalize anybody, and I don't want to and I want to keep the gym a place where people of all views and opinions can come and feel safe and not have to like worry about that sort of thing. And while I can appreciate that, I think it's pretty obvious that there's nobody. I mean, well, I shouldn't say this, but racism is one of those things where there is no gray area to me.
Right.
It's like racism is bad through and through.
Well,
Like,
that's how I view it. There's levels to using your platform and voice. Right. I get if you want to keep politics out because politics is just it's a never ending argument on two sides. But when it comes down to discussion of good versus bad, right versus wrong, like I feel like that line is even more. Again, there's no gray area, and either you are for good or you're for bad.
right.
And I struggle with oversimplifying it, but I think it is at its essence in terms of should you be talking about it, um, that it's just that debate, good or bad.
Yep.
And I mean, everyone in my circle is good. I'm not afraid to voice that support for good. Again, nothing that I would put out or we would put out would be political. There would be no labels other than just do what's right. And
yeah,
I think putting that, especially if you are in a position where you have a platform or a voice or some kind of influence or just the opportunity to bring people together, you should create that opportunity to have discussion for good, to find solutions. I think that's where that initial message ends. It's just starting discussions for finding solutions for good, not Republican versus Democrat, Antifa, whatever. None of that shit. Because I think that's where it gets lost. That's where it gets lost, and then that's where you invite the opportunity to have these debates that don't really get at the essence of what we're after, what everyone's after, is hopefully you're out for good intentions for yourself, for your community.
I think the difference comes in, I would agree with everything that you just said. First off, like the good intentions, yes, definitely. Everybody is going to be. I don't think there are people out there with bad intentions that think they have bad intentions. Is what I
Right.
mean to say. I think different perspectives on the intentions, and so there's some value in just keeping quiet. But it's like in something like this, it's not polarizing, I guess is the right way. Like if there's a topic that divides people 50-50 or 60-40 or even 70-30, then it might benefit the business unless the topic aligns with your core values explicitly. It might benefit the business to remain neutral. But in something like this is like the 99 versus the 1. This is 99% versus 1%. I have to believe as a what I consider to be a good human, I consider myself a good human, that 99% of the world believes that racism is bad, is wrong. And the only reason I don't believe 100% of people think that is because I've seen it. Like I know there's at least the 1%.
Right.
But the overwhelming majority, everybody else. Yeah. There's in my opinion, I think it's, you kind of have to take a stance. I would be worried more about seeming opportunistic,
right,
than not taking a stance.
Absolutely. So far, everything I've seen from the different companies I follow and like see the social media post about it, I haven't seen anything that's remotely opportunistic.
Yeah, me neither.
There's never an ask. There's never
right.
Hey, join us and sign up for this. Which is
right now I haven't seen that. Yeah, which is great. Which is it actually makes me feel like change is possible.
Yes,
like it gives me more hope about the situation. I woke up to a feed of like just blank tiles. I didn't know what was going on, so I'm assuming everybody's supposed to post a blank tile today or something like that. That was what my feed was. So I was like, how did we coordinate this? Where did this start?
But that's the thing. It started somewhere and people shared their intention.
Yep.
And even if it's only on social media, I think it shows unity in something.
Yeah.
Even if it is just social media, that then would hopefully lead to some action or, discussion towards a real solution. But I think that's a strong first or second showing of where everyone stands.
Of unity, yeah.
Well, I mean, the biggest thing about dialogue is just how do you have constructive dialogue? Like, how do you get to a point where, or maybe it's just understanding that you have your own opinions and that it will be very hard to change somebody else's opinions about things. But how do you get to the point where you at least both agree, like you said, that racism is bad, that overall that there are some things that truly the line in the sand, like everybody should understand, and that it is a okay topic to discuss. It is an okay topic to argue about. But the feelings behind it and being able to control your feelings and be reasonable about things, like how do you just move forward as a society?
Well, here's my spin on that is, again, there's different levels of arguments and different debates you can have. This is not one where I think there's a debate. I think we know what's right or wrong. And it's more so talking out what the solutions or steps forward can be. I mean, I don't know if my view is just super narrow on that, but I think it is as simple as if you think racism is okay, well, then you go sit on the other side by yourself.
Yeah,
And
I mean,
and personally, I don't want you in my circle.
yeah, I mean, I think like if the options are, hey, or binary, it's very easy, and I think it's like, but I don't know if I agree that the steps are easy.
No.
I
And I
think
think
these are
that's where the
some.
conversations need to be, is to discuss what those steps are, because it's such a delicate, complex, and ingrained situation that's it's built into a lot of different layers to what we're doing, or to us as a society, right? So we can't just have one idea and go for it and then that be the magic end all solution to everything. So I think that's where the discussion needs to happen. I just don't think the discussion is around, like, is this right or wrong? Do you believe protesting is right or wrong? um,
Oh, like the hard part about this entire travesty is just, I've always been a person, at least personally, a person that tried to find answers and solutions to things.
yes.
And I don't know how to grasp that right now because, one, I'm not black. I can't ever claim to understand what an
You're a
African
minority.
American. Yeah, yeah. I mean, I've obviously like faced racism, but at the same time, like,
Not to the same extent.
Right.
yeah, exactly. Like,
Yeah, we can't.
if I were to really think about it, it's like I can't really think, like, sure, racism is racism, but
Right.
to the level and extent, like, I don't get afraid if like I get stopped by a cop.
Right.
Like, I'm not afraid, like walking around, like, at night, like, alone. Like, there's just a whole different level that I will never ever experience or understand about.
Right.
So I can't really come up with the solution, and I'm not saying that I have to, but that's just how my mind works. Like, I want to solve things for myself, for my circle, for others, and hope that I'm making the right decision. But at the same time, I think, how can I be making some of these decisions, for others? Like, it's such a hard moral dilemma that, you're right, it comes down to, is me just being part of the solution, the bigger
Enough.
solution, being part of the movement. Yeah, enough. And that's what I deal with is
That's the exact discussion I had with myself, like, all weekend, was, what, I mean, we're all cut the same way, everyone here at the company knows how to get things done, find a problem. And that's just I think ingrained in anyone who owns a business, is you find problems and you find solutions for those problems. And this feels so much bigger than what we
The problem any single person
control
could
over.
Yeah,
Right.
exactly. Yeah.
It's hard to even think that you have any influence over any of this.
Right. Exactly. And I mean, and to be honest, you really don't, because this is one of those things that is, it's not a, I mean, it is and it isn't, because people think that this is a societal issue. And it's not a societal issue, because if we were to look at, and I had this conversation with someone else recently, if you were able to magically divide the country, or our society, given society in the US, into people that are racist and then people that are not racist, you would have an overwhelming majority on the non-racist side, as long as you had a fair definition of racism. And that's where we actually started talking about the definition of racism, though, starts with you. Like, we can look up a textbook definition of racism and be like, okay, this is it, but it's not going to really help. Like, I don't consider stereotypes racism, personally. I don't. I've been stereotyped before, but am I going to say that I've been the victim of racism? I've been stereotyped as a white guy, but does that mean I'm the victim of racism? No, I'm not going to say that. Racism, to me, is when you have given someone a disadvantage because of the color of their skin, not because you have assumed something. Like, there are safe assumptions to make about certain people. And
That's how you're able to,
that's how humans function, right? And there are, good or less savory assumptions and, better ones. But at the same time, like if you make an assumption about someone based on the color of their skin, I think that's prejudging them. And I think that could be considered prejudice if it's a negative thing, right? If I look at a black person, I assume that person's going to be more athletic than me because they're black. Is that racism? No, I don't know. Maybe, but it's like, I think the biggest thing that any one person can do is really set their own boundaries, define these things to them, is to really like be introspective. Think about what it means to them, where their boundaries are, and then just be a good human by upholding their core beliefs and not letting other people infringe on other people's rights. So it's the only thing that we can do is take care of ourselves in this sense, because if everybody takes care of theirs or standing up for other people, yeah, I guess that's the only thing that we can do.
So there are a lot of vocal people about the situation, and there's also a lot of non-vocal people who are against racism, right? Do you use this platform to try and get people on board to be more vocal, to try to push for change? Not necessarily changing their viewpoint on racism, but their willingness to take a stance.
Well, but that's where we lose it. Define change. What is change? What needs to change? Well, at this point, I think it's taking action. I mean, we haven't laid out the steps, but
it is taking some action, right?
Right. Well, so I mean, these protests, they're great, and you know what? They maybe, I think what they accomplish is that they bring awareness to people who already thought racism was bad and who weren't racist. I think it brings awareness to them as to the severity of the issue for certain individuals, for certain populations. But is that the only thing that we're trying to change? Or are we trying to end a certain quote unquote police brutality or the unwarranted killings of specifically black people by cops, which actually as a statistic has been on the decline since 2016 or 2015. But like that's where I have trouble. I'm just like, so what is it that we are actually changing? Because I have a hard time believing that the majority of people in this world are racist, or our society.
Yeah, but I think for a lot of the population, it hasn't been an urgent enough issue to speak up, to even just cast a vote a certain way,
right?
To support organizations,
right?
Like actually go into their pocket or show their presence, and
so it's a wake up call.
Small.
It's to serve, yeah.
And okay. That's where I think anyone who has a platform, then that would be their role, large or small. Like even if your impact is the 10 people around you, they might share the same viewpoint as you, but their level of commitment to any kind of action isn't there yet because it's never been an issue for them.
Maybe now we're more likely to see, or because of the amount of awareness that has been brought to the topic, that people will be more likely to prevent racism in its tracks when they see it starting to happen, or accidental racism, which I guess is a thing. I don't know. But yeah, I think overall the protests are good. I don't think it's going to be very easy for people like you and me and everybody that we're talking right now to be like, what's the solution? What's the fix?
Oh yeah.
Because it doesn't happen. Yeah. But it doesn't happen like that.
It's using whatever impact you have to make even a slight difference. Again, if that difference, all it is you put out a few messages or you carry on conversations with your community and you get them to go from doing nothing to maybe even just being aware. You can't quantify that. It's hard to measure any of that, but that's, I think, where our opportunity to make a difference is. Not to find a solution, because again, we don't have that impact, that power, um, individually.
Right.
But it's definitely a grassroots thing. Like everyone has to slowly learn to take action. You will be willing to step up, and little by little, we crank away at this until it comes time to again, like make an impact at the polls. Make an impact on policy. Like those are the things that take a lot longer. But if everyone's comfortable and not accustomed to being aware of issues and taking action, when it comes time to make a decision, they might just sit back again too.
But I like what you're saying though, because I think awareness, like being aware of yourself, being aware of your environment, like that's the biggest thing I think take away from our conversation that I can see is that you can't. I wish that we could make big sweeping change, but you're right. Like being aware so that there will be a next time, unfortunately, but hopefully as a society, we will kind of grow up from this.
It's societal shaming is what it is now that I think about it, which is a good thing. I mean, I would much rather see people like I've always been the mind of like, I don't ever want to legislate, or I would never want policy to be made that reduces someone's freedom of choice. If someone chooses to be racist, I would never, ever want to have a policy that says you can't be racist. I wouldn't. I don't think that's the government's job. I would want society to do what it's doing now and make that racist feel so crappy about themselves or so ostracized that they realize that they were in the wrong society.
And they start changing their stance.
And they start changing their views themselves. I don't think the government's role should be to legislate or do policy or anything like that. But what is happening now is exactly what I think should happen, where the society is saying, no, we want to live a certain way, this way. And if you don't agree to it, that's fine, but get out. Don't live here.
Yeah. I mean, we can wrap this call up pretty soon. And I think this is definitely a raw conversation. Not something we planned, but I think it's an important discussion. And again, for everyone who's watching this, even if it's only the 10 of you guys that actually watch this all the way to the end, I hope that gives you an appreciation for what your impact could be, even if it's small, right? Because I think everyone's so caught up in trying to make a huge difference. But again, if you're in a circle, it is a few people, your gym community. Well, you as a business owner, as a leader, still have an obligation to do something. I think at this point, you just can't sit back and not say something, or not try to lead a discussion towards a solution. Again, even if it's contained in your small group. That's my stance on it. I just think we all have too much of influence to just sit back and not use it for good.
Right.
Yeah. I mean, I think you can't tell somebody how to run their business, but what you can tell them is at least make a decision. Either you want to be part of. I mean, again, it's going back to Zach's societal shaming. You want to be part of the solution or part of the problem.
And I think that's actually a good point. It's make a decision and then understand why you're making it. Yes. Like I think understanding your decision on that level and how it pertains to, and maybe why it's related to your core values, or if hopefully it is, I think that is actually the key that gives you the conviction which is necessary to I hate to use the word justify your decision, but like at least if someone were to question your decision, you'd be able to educate them on why your stance is your stance.
Where you're coming from.
I don't agree with people that take a stance and they don't understand why they're taking a stance, or just because, and they can't articulate, reasoning behind it. So if you make a decision, just understand and know why you're making that decision.
All right, we can end it on that note, guys.
Cool.
Yeah, we'll catch you guys tomorrow. If you guys have any response, want to jump in the discussion, throw a message into the comments. If anyone wants to jump on this call and have a conversation, we'd love to start inviting people of the community on what their stance is, how they're handling it. Again, this issue is larger than any one of us. So I think collectively, as we can start to come together as a community, we can figure out what those immediate steps are, at least for those around us. All right, guys. Well, we'll catch you guys tomorrow.
Thanks
guys.
Absolutely.